Hey guys, I had a really awesome question asked about in one of my videos where I'm doing a wide grip bent over row from pins. Somebody mentioned that they think that their butt is sticking out too much when it comes to being bent over the bar and rowing. So I realize that that actually happens across the board in anything. So barbell bent over row from pins, pen lay rows, all of the deadlift variations. There's really a fine cue about where I'm supposed to be in space in relation to my sternum and my hips. And then there's also something in relation to muscle firing sequence, which is actually really, really important as well. So in exercise where you do a deadlift and all you feel is your lower back, then it's being done wrong. Okay, I'm trying to work my hip muscles. I am trying to work my lower back too, but it just depends. I'm not trying to target my lower back like that. So I've got a barbell here. This is a very short barbell. It's 10 pound plate, so it's only 50 pounds. Now, when it comes to, I'm going to show you all the exercises and then I'll explain the difference. So barbell bent over row. Most people think when they're doing that, for the most part, that I just have to worry about having a good curvature in my lower back. And that's true when I do a conventional deadlift, which is my arms outside my legs. Okay, so I'll show you this way. Or Sumo Deadlift. Okay, snatch grip deadlift. Okay, or Romanian deadlift. I can go to a pen lay row, which is just a bent over row when it rests on the ground. So, all those exercises have something pretty similar, or something in common across the board, and that is, they're all really tough. And they all require you to be in a certain angle to perform them properly. If my hips are too high, too low, my chest is rounded or too up, I have too much curvature in my lower back, you're changing the muscle that you're targeting the most. So meaning that if I was to do a barbell bent over row, and I think this is what the person was referring to when they left that comment. In a bent over row, they said that their butt was sticking out too much. Most likely, that's because their butt's too high. It doesn't mean I should be down here when I row, because I'm going to run into my knees. So when is this too high and when is this too low? And where's the happy place in all of that? Okay, so I'll show you the difference between all of them. Then I actually have Anna demonstrate them, and I'll show you what it works with a cue. So, first and foremost, in most things, okay, because all of us have different lengths of femur, this bone. The different lengths determine where you're supposed to be, and what you're supposed to feel stays the same. Does that make sense? So if I'm really short, and I have really short femur, then I'm going to look different than somebody with a really long femur who's really tall in the movement. But if I position myself, first and foremost, my sternum directly over the bar. So I don't care where I bend to do a deadlift, to do a row, my sternum is over the bar. If I was to hang a string, it would hang straight down. It wouldn't hang out here, I wouldn't be back here. I've got to keep my sternum over the bar. Second cue, I don't care what exercise it is, you need to tighten and find tension in your hamstrings just below your butt. So in your posterior chain, you need to find tension in the hips. So I position myself so my sternum is over the bar. If I was going to conventional deadlift, I would keep my butt down. I'm going to find tension in my hips by slowly pulling them up before I blast up. Back down. You need to reposition each one of those again. If I need to make sure I'm in the right spot, my sternum over the bar, I'm going to find tension in my hips by lifting them a little. If I go too high, I actually lose tension in my hips. So that's a deadlift. In a row, sternum over the bar. Lift my hips just enough that my knees are out of the way so I don't clip them when I row, but I have a lot of hamstring tension. I don't care if it's underhand. All that means is you're going to come around the knees a little bit. Okay? But the whole time my sternum stayed over that bar. So where you're supposed to be in space, sumo deadlift. wider stance. My sternum still over my hips, but my hips have to be a little higher because I have to find inner thigh tension to pull from. Sternum over the bar when I go back. You see a deadlift done wrong, people do this. Right? And I see it all the time, especially in guys that have really long femurs because they're going to run into their knees. So instead of actually pushing their butt back to clear their knees, where my sternum's over the bar, therefore my back is going to be protected as long as it's straight, I'm okay. If I've got a really long femur, I'm going to try to do this and back. Okay? Sternum over the bar, hips up just high enough to feel your hamstrings screaming at you before you do any of the exercises. So, sternum over the bar, hips screaming at me, sumo deadlift. Okay? Sternum over the bar, hips screaming at me, deadlift. Sternum over the bar, hips high enough that my knees are cleared, row. Okay? Same cue across the board, sternum over the bar, hips just high enough to feel the hamstring screaming at you before you perform whatever exercise it is where I'm bent over a bar. Okay? So I'm going to have Anna, who doesn't have a ton of experience with barbells, but she knows what she's doing, come and demonstrate sumo deadlift first. Okay, so her sternum is over the bar. She's going to lift her hips just high enough. You feel the hamstring squeezing? Mm-hmm. Okay, it's stretched, but she's got a nice lower back curvature. Her chest is sticking out. So chest sticking out. And she's just going to deadlift. Pop the hips. Ass way back. She should finish with her chest or her sternum back over that bar. Okay, and let's do a row. So arms, feet a little bit closer. You always, again, sternum over the bar, hips just high enough. Hamstrings are screaming at her. She's just going to row that up to her chest or below her chest. Okay, try to stick the chest out when you row. Okay, now by her third, just stay there. Third, fourth rep, just rest it down, but stay there. By third, fourth rep, that back starts to be loaded a bit too much. So I want her to reposition her hips. Grab the bar. Sternum's over the bar, reposition her hips. Now lift them just high enough that this is retightened along with her hamstrings. Go harder on the row. Good. Pop your chest a little bit when you row. Good. Alright, so her hamstrings screaming at you the whole time? Yeah. Okay, stand up. Okay, so conventional deadlift, which is just that arms outside the legs. Again, first cue, first and foremost, sternum over the bar. So walk under the bar. Okay, so sternum over the bar when you get down. Okay, now take a tight grip. Tighten up the hamstring, so go down with the butt. Come up with the butt a little bit, shoulders back. Okay, now just stand up with the deadlift. Okay, now butt backward. She keeps her sternum over the bar and down to the dead. Posture. Good. Okay, so any of that negative in the lower back? No. No, and the weight is light, but the point is you're going to save your lower back and you're going to know if you're in the right spot if your sternum is over the bar first and foremost. Then find hamstring tension. Now, one thing I will say, with Anna and I's shoes right now, we're just in regular runners. A lot of the time, it's very hard for me to get into my hips with a hip hinge if my shoes, which are meant for forward propulsion, because all runners are, put me on a slant like that. So when I deadlift, personally, I don't even deadlift in shoes. I just absolutely refuse to, and my socks are bare feet. Because I don't need something putting me into my toes, because I'm not trying to forward propulse, I'm trying to go backwards. So this is where, when I go to deadlift, it's very important that I'm actually in flat feet. It's easier for me to get down to the bar and tighten my hips and stay in my heels, to the point even where my toes are up. So last kind of cue, if you're putting your sternum over the bar, if you're setting your hips in a way that your hamstrings are tight, and you still feel like it doesn't feel right, then check your shoes. Because if you're in traditional runners, okay, which have a really chunky heel versus how much is here, so it's like wearing high heels when you're working out, okay, then you need to go invest in a very flat shoe. Okay, this is my favorite one. This is the New Balance Minimus training shoe. Super flat. The Innovates are good too. This is the Minimus Road shoe. It's got 4 millimeters of lift. You can get a Minimus Zero, which is 0. The point is, flat is boring as shoes. Chuck Taylors, Nike Frees, I don't care. Just don't be in chunked out heels trying to do something with yourself over the bar, because guaranteed you're going to be in your toes too much to begin with. So, sternum over the bar. find hamstring tension, then perform the lift that you're looking for.